It's the Infinite Podcast. Go tell your friends. It's the Infinite Podcast. My God, it never ends. It's the Infinite Podcast with Rob and Cork the Kid.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite Podcast, the podcast covering the infinite and ever-expanding multiverse of fandom from movies, comics, TV shows, video games. We have and will always have you covered for 100 episodes in the future and 100 episodes today because it's our 100th episode. Funny enough.
Yeah. And we're here to talk about possibly the greatest movie of all time.
We deserve this.
Yes.
We did this to ourselves.
We did do this to ourselves. We were here to talk about 2023's The Flash.
If we had started this podcast 2 weeks earlier, or...
Yep.
Yeah, 2 weeks earlier, Across the Spider-Verse would have been 100th episode.
Yep.
But instead, it's this.
Yeah.
Was it good? We'll see. We'll talk about it. So yeah, we're here to talk about The Flash, a movie that was 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
Starring, of course, Ezra Miller as Barry Allen, Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, Batman, the debut of Sasha Calle as Supergirl, and a litany of other people.
Not a lot of other people, actually.
Not. Yeah, it's really not that big a cast.
A handful of other people.
A handful of other people and some other things that were going on. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that. There's definitely a discussion to be had about this movie that definitely exists outside of like what actually happened in it because man, it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, I don't think we have too wavering of a spectrum of opinion on this movie. I do like this movie a little bit more than you do, and I think there is a couple saving graces, but just as a whole, of this being the 10 years in the making product that we got, I don't think this is probably what they wanted. And you know, a lot of times the narrative will go, what's the most controversial comic book movie? This very well might be one of the most controversial comic book movies ever released. Like, this probably has one of the broadest spectrums of people that absolutely despise this movie and people that absolutely are like, this is one of the greatest comic books movies of all time. And as many people have been saying over the last couple days, there is some brave warriors are talking about, there is no in-between, unfortunately, in this new era of life that we live in. There, you can only think this is the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever. There can't be something that was just okay. There can't be anything that's nuanced. There can't be specific things to pull from. So yeah, we're going to dive into those, however.
Yeah, I think we do a really good job of that with a lot of different things. I mean, you look at the catalog of movies that we reviewed over time, like even things like Venom and Morbius and Matrix Resurrections, like, we had good, engaging discussions about and found the good in this. And like you said, there is some good stuff in this movie, but as far as I think what this movie ended up doing, and it was what kind of I was afraid of, were these really bizarre kind of celebrity reviews that were coming in from people that usually don't offer their opinions on things that often. When you think about Tom Cruise apparently saw this movie and couldn't stop raving about it. Well,
that was the big one. And then who was the person that, quote-unquote, saved cinema in the last 2 years? Yeah. It was Tom Cruise. So people are immediately like, well, he already knows movies. And, just yesterday, the embargo for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning came out, and the reviews have been very positive for that. So those things coupled, you're like, all right, well, we're going to listen to Tom Cruise about this. Then Stephen King came out and said that this movie's over the moon. I just think that's because Andy Muschietti bought,
directed it.
Yeah, directed it. So obviously he was going to help his friend out. Then like Terry Crews, like just random people were seeing this movie, and I'm like, is this like a marketing ploy? Like, or is this real? Like, why are these random people just seeing this movie and just we get told this is the greatest thing ever? So I think the biggest compliment for this movie is also the biggest criticism I have, and that there's a bones of not a decent, not a good. I think there's the bones of like a absolutely incredible superhero, not only superhero movie. I think there's the bones of actually a pretty good just movie in here. They're somewhere hidden in here, but I don't know where it is. I don't know where it got lost, but that's what happens is when you're making something for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to break that down and so much more about The Flash. But first, we do have a little bit of news. First and foremost, we got a Kraven the Hunter trailer. Mm-hmm. So the Aaron Taylor Johnson-led Spider-Man universe adjacent movie has got its first full trailer. And I'm
in. I'm in.
You're in. I told you this. I think it's astounding that all these Spider-Man universe adjacent movies that feature different characters and locations all still somehow manage to look the same.
Yep.
This has the same type of tone and atmosphere as Venom did.
Yep.
The same tone and atmosphere as Morbius did. Like, this is just apparently like what this is. Like this.
I think it has something to do with Spider-Man.
Right. It's the classic. Is he a villain? Is he not a villain? We're going to do that again.
I mean, obviously, they're selling it on the anti-hero, and I'm fine with that. Obviously, I don't think people understand. Why would you market a solo movie around somebody that's just a despicable person, like just a horrible person? Like, obviously, you're going to have a little bit more, leaning over to the fact that it's not that simple, and he's had a dark past, and these things have happened. Russell Crowe's his father. Like, there's a lot of things that go into factors that go into this. So, it looks dumb. It looks loud. It looks fun. That's all I can say about this. I don't really have a bunch of violent. Yeah, so this movie is rated R. So obviously, Venom 1 was definitely rated PG-13.
They both were.
Both were rated PG-13. Morbius as well was rated PG-13. So this is the first R-rated one. Why Venom 2 was? You know what? I take that back about Venom 2. I know exactly why Venom 2 wasn't rated PG or rated R, and that's because it needed to set up Spider-Man No Way Home. Mm-hmm. So, this movie takes the swing, rates it R, and it is pretty brutal. Like, there are some, like, he uses a bear trap to kill somebody.
He bites a man's nose off.
So there's some pretty brutal things in here. But I don't know how far this is going to go in terms of plot. The question you need to ask is this going to be as good as Venom, or is it going to be as bad as Morbius? I guess this is where this movie's going to live.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly where it's going to live. Short of something that comes out about it that we haven't seen. Mm-hmm. And maybe the R rating is that. Like, maybe that's enough to differentiate it. And we're both fans of Aaron Taylor Johnson and what he can potentially bring to this role. Mm-hmm. But it's the same issue I have with all of these movies. Like, I'd rather just see Aaron Taylor Johnson against Spider-Man.
It's simple that they're taking all these time, money, and resources. And, what's funny is, I have to ask this question too, I have to stop myself sometimes about thinking about myself as not a general audience. I'm not we're not general audience watchers. We're people that go in with preconceived notions and knowledge about these movies.
Right.
So I think for people like us, we would have been cool if they would have pooled all these resources and just bought an Andrew Garfield back and just had them be more of those movies in a different universe versus like we're just getting these solo movies that are amounting to nothing, it seems like, at this point, because we already did the thing. We already did No Way Home, so this is after. So I just think they committed to this and they said, well, it's too late. We got to keep pumping these out. And people are still seeing these movies for all intents and purposes.
So far. Yeah, at least the Sony ones.
Right.
And I mean, I guess the thing that's kind of working out in their favor versus like what's going on with The Flash is they're relatively lower budget.
Right, yep.
Than say The Flash was. Like Morbius didn't make a bajillion dollars, mm-hmm. but it was still relatively low budget enough that they made some money off of it.
Yep.
I mean, and then subsequently lost a bunch of money when they re-released it. But I mean, both Venom movies made quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you're right. People are seeing these. Maybe these types of movies do appeal to a more general audience.
Sure, because there's not a lot. You don't need to have, this spider knowledge before it. It's just these. You don't even need to really have superhero knowledge. You just need to go in and just kind of turn your brain off for a little bit.
Learn the character.
The character, which is it. And they're not overly complicated, too.
No.
Like, they're not these overly complex things that need to interconnect and interweave with things. They're just things that kind of happen. You know, my only conceit for that is the weird ending of post-credit scene in Morbius, and then obviously the post-credit scene in Venom. But the post-credit scene in Venom I can buy. The Morbius one is just, I can't believe they did that. To this day, it's just insanity that they were able to even think about pulling that off.
And they're probably gonna do another one of those.
I think they're gonna do it
with
again.
this movie.
So I guess we'll end with this. What's the end game for these?
I don't even know anymore. I've lost track of it. I thought I had an idea, but now that's seeming increasingly less likely.
Right.
That they were going to get all these guys together for an Andrew Garfield-led Amazing Spider-Man 3.
That's what I thought the whole thing was all of these guys all of these things took place in that universe, and that they were gonna have to fight him at some point, which would have probably played, especially how popular he got after that movie came out.
Yeah.
It's seemingly something he was open to doing as well, so I don't know what happened there. Maybe it's a confusion thing, like I said. I don't think they wanted to confuse the general audience by having multiple versions of a character on the big screen at the same time. Even though Batman's going to do that in the next year, or the next 5 years, so...
In a potentially insane amount of ways.
Yeah, right. Even more than we... I don't think it is going to be more than we thought. I think... No spoilers for The Flash, but I think they are going to dead whatever their plans were for that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Otherwise, woof.
Yeah.
You want to get nuts? It's going to get nuts. So yeah, I mean, the best way I can explain this movie and movies like it are harmless, I feel like.
Sure.
I feel like they're totally harmless. I feel like they're not huge, massive budget. They're not seemingly tied to anything. They are
Unless they are.
Unless they are. Right.
But they're too stupid for me to care.
Right. Yeah, they don't bother me in the least bit. So we have some Stranger Things news. So for those of you who may not pay attention to what happens with these Stranger Things seasons, they always get like a big guest star, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always a big one of like a side character or whatever that's introduced, and I would assume that the person that they've casted for season 5 is going to be that. So Linda Hamilton of Terminator fame has signed on to be in Stranger Things 5. Mm-hmm. That totally makes sense.
Yep. One of the odors of the 80s and 90s. And I mean, I think it is super cool that, you know, Arnold is the action head, obviously. I mean, Stranger Things, I think, takes a little bit more precedence because it's the thing, essentially, that's running the app right now. It's one of the only things that's consistently bringing people back. So it's just cool to see these classic actors kind of get in on that world. And this is the last season, too, so this is going to be... It is a big deal that she's there, too. Maybe bestow some knowledge about how to do the blockbuster, even though they have been doing the blockbuster TV since 2016? Sheesh.
I could definitely see her being some type of like Black Ops military type.
I have two things. She's either going to be some like Black Ops military person, or she's going to be somebody's mom. Yeah, and they're going to play it like they did with Rudy in season 2.
That could work. Mm-hmm. But they also have Winona Ryder already
doing that
that sort of. So I could definitely see her being like, for some reason, like I think Linda Hamilton. I think honestly, I'm pulling this from her last appearance in Terminator, mm-hmm. when like I just see her like pulling up like black kind of like jacket, mm-hmm. like dark rimmed sunglasses, and she's like, here's what's going on in this situation, like I'm in charge here. Like I definitely like that's the type of character I feel like she could definitely
and
bring.
I mean the world is ending
right.
in the show, like literally the fabric of reality is being torn open, so anything can happen. I mean that's probably in my top 3 most anticipated things in the next 2 years, so I cannot wait to see how that show ends. I mean, the absolute that season 4 has got to be one of the examples of like just world-stopping television, like to the point where everybody and anybody was talking about it. If you didn't see it, you couldn't talk about it because you couldn't spoil it. Like over the last couple of years, what other shows? Game of Thrones had that. I think Stranger Things probably might be the king of that over the last couple of years. It's a battle definitely between that and Game of Thrones, but just from a week to like, obviously it drops at all the same time, but I just remember that week when it dropped, like the second part when they did that last two parts, and then the reveal, obviously one of the biggest reveals of that show was the true identity of the main villain. Like man, just I remember where I was when I watched that. Like I think it's very rare that I can remember like exactly what I was doing, exactly where I was, like exactly like the day, like because it was the 4th of July weekend it came out. Like, man, that show is gearing up to have one of the biggest endings of any TV show. So.
Oh yeah, totally agreed. And like we said, we did a Stranger Things review. We said it's right up there with the best seasons of TV.
Yeah, that you season can get. Is phenomenal.
We got, speaking of Netflix things, we got a little teaser trailer and some first images for the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender series.
M. Night Shyamalan, eat your heart out.
No. And I'll say this, like, honestly, it's a good comparison point to make. This looks like they're leaning into more of the anime stuff than that movie did. It's more colorful, certainly, from the teaser images. Yep. The characters definitely seem to be more anime accurate compared to the movie. The characters are all age appropriate. Yeah. Obviously, we don't have a ton to go on. Like, there was no footage in the teaser trailer. Right. It was literally just the nation symbols flashing and then the title card reveal. But, you know, it looks... The still images look really cool. Yeah. I'm hopeful that the visual effects hold up, because that can kind of make or break a thing like this. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to it for sure. Yeah,
Netflix definitely has a lot of stuff going on. I mean, this all came from the To Doom event that they just had, and Netflix has a lot going for them right now. They have a little bit of steam, which I think they need, especially since HBO Max is kind of at a hold right now, especially since, you know, 2 of your biggest shows just ended, Barry and Succession, and then The Idol's not performing. Apparently, I guess it is, though. I guess people are watching, but critically, it's being just absolutely destroyed. Like, Netflix kind of needed this right now. Like, they needed this, like, hey, Linda Hamilton's going to be in season 5 of Stranger Things. Here's your first look at Avatar. So
The Witcher's coming
back. They were losing it when Henry Cavill walked out there. So,
Black Mirror just came out.
Well, yeah, that was my other point, was Black Mirror just came out too. So Netflix has got a little steam going into, you know, the summer of this year and then the end of this year. So
yeah, I totally agree. We talked about that when we talked about like the streaming wars, is that Netflix kind of needed a win. Yep. Like Stranger Things helped, like season 4.
I helped tremendously, yeah. But then once it's over, you know? So what's the thing? That's what HBO Max did just so incredibly, was the thing ended, and then the thing started, and then that thing ended, but then the next thing started. So they always had must-watch television every Sunday.
Yeah, and Disney Plus is about to do that with Secret Invasion starting. And then, you know, speaking of Marvel, the Hulk has been finally reverted back to Marvel Studios. They wasted no time in flexing that by putting the Incredible Hulk on Disney Plus. Both you and I find that movie to be quite underrated.
Yeah, I think it's a solid, like, again, no harm, no foul solo project. And it really, for me, really showed the brutality of Hulk and kind of the brutality and duality was something I enjoyed.
Ed Norton is difficult to work with.
Apparently, unless you're Wes Anderson.
Yeah, and couldn't continue in the MCU, but I quite liked his take on Bruce Banner.
I really bought his Bruce. I think that's my favorite thing about him. Like, I bought his Bruce as being like the destruction of the man under the Hulk versus what I like about Mark Ruffalo's take is the science man, like the actual scientist part of Bruce Banner.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see what that means for the future of the Hulk in the MCU, and it retroactively makes what's going on with Captain America: Brave New World make more sense.
It's timing something, ain't it?
Yeah, which is something that you and I both kind of speculated on, that there was going to be a lot of Hulk elements in this Captain America movie, and now with this news, that makes even more sense, and we'll see, you know, what that looks like past Captain America 4, if they're going to use this as kind of a launch point for the big finally Hulk solo project.
Maybe they, you know, this whole Jonathan Majors thing's not to beat a dead horse, but things might change. I mean, the news we learned right before we hopped on is that Marvel's skipping Hall H at Comic-Con, which is kind of a big deal. That actually is kind of a big deal. So what I told you before we hopped on was I think that is a direct correlation to that with Jonathan Majors. So I think what their original plan for Hall H was, like, he was going to come and it's going to be like, hey, it's time. Like, we're about to start announcing, like, you guys are going to have a clearer vision on what everything is. And then all this stuff happened. They were like, oh crap, that was this multiverse was the whole selling point for Hall H this year specifically, because we were about to launch into, like, the meat and potatoes of Phase 5. So, obviously, the writer's strike also hinders that. That's gonna, these other studios had stuff already ready to go. Marvel was all in production on everything except for Secret Invasion, it seemed like. And obviously, the Marvels, I think they're comfortable waiting and just dropping a trailer on a day that doesn't need to compete with these other studios on, like, a Saturday for a Comic-Con. So, them not being there is a sign that maybe, we push Secret Invasion out. We kind of get the gap. We just let it breathe for a little bit. There's nothing that's coming after it. And then we get to November, we do the Marvels. And then, by November, we're going to know we're probably going to get a trailer for Oh, no, we can't if this writer's strike keeps going. So we'll see. This is going to be really interesting.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the Comic-Con thing is also kind of indicative of, I think, these studios, it's the E3 thing where these gaming companies were year after year pulling out of E3 to do their own thing, because why am I sharing time with not a competitor, but just another studio when I can just my brand is big enough that I can just host my own thing and people will watch that instead of Comic-Con giving me, or E3 giving me, an hour and a half in a time slot.
Right.
So I think maybe Comic-Con could, hopefully it doesn't, but Comic-Con could be falling the wayside the same way E3 sort of did this year, where E3 is ostensibly done. It's eradicated.
I mean, the last big year for Comic-Con was 2019. That was the last, knockout punch year. And what's insane to even think about, because Comic-Con takes place in August or July, something like that. It's been almost 4 years since Mahershala Ali got announced as Blade. And, it's been 4 years since, what else happened there? What was the other big one that happened there in 2019?
Man.
I mean, we were just getting, all the phase 4 stuff. We were getting ready for this multiversal tale. Obviously we didn't know what everything was, but we just got some teases for some things. But obviously it ended with the Blade reveal. So times have changed. The internet kind of takes that job away from that Comic-Con used to have. So we'll kind of see how it folds out, but I don't think there should be as much panic, because I took a quick scroll through Twitter and people were panicking, there was a panic, like Marvel's not at Hall H. I think it'll just be fine. I think they have a plan.
Yeah, I definitely think they have a plan. I think that plan, like I said, is just going to be circulated. It's going to be focused purely on their own thing. They'll do I wouldn't even be surprised if it's not even a Disney thing. It might just be a Marvel Studios thing. Here it is. Here's the big thing.
Yep.
So
maybe a trailer for just one thing. Right.
Short of that, The Flash. Dread it, run from it. So like we said, this movie, 10 years in the making. It was greenlit. This was going to be it was greenlit initially as a Flash and Cyborg movie, which tells you how long ago this thing was in development.
So let's go back to 2016 specifically, and you actually should remember this. Do you remember the episode of The Flash, and they said, we're going to do this? That was actually, you know what that was with Kevin Smith? That was DC Fandom. I forgot about that. That's was one of the earliest iterations of DC Fandom. So I forget what episode of The Flash that was, but it was a bigger episode of The Flash. I just remember it was 2015 or 2016, 2015. It was definitely season 2 of The Flash. The Flash was in its swing, and Kevin Smith came out with who did he come out? Oh, with Jeff Johns, who was the head of DC. He was the Kevin Feige for DC at the time, which at the time makes perfect sense. I mean, he had been writing the most prominent modern day stories for how many characters, and I mean, he basically spearheaded the New 52, which is the most popular modern iteration of all of those characters. So Kevin Smith walks out. He says, all right, we are getting a Green Lantern movie, we are getting a Flash movie, we're getting an Aquaman movie, we're getting a Wonder Woman movie, and then it's all going to culminate in the Justice League next year. Guess how many of those movies got made? So I think did they announce 2 parts of the Justice League? They were going to do a part 1 and a part 2.
Yeah.
half of those movies got made. The Suicide Squad, I think we got a trailer for the Suicide Squad because it was getting ready about time for that movie to come out. But yeah, I remember that vividly. I just remember the passion that everybody was talking about, like, and this is around the time that Civil War was coming out, and one of the big complaints with Marvel is just like, okay, we got our trailer, we had already had our trailer for Batman vs Superman, and the big thing was, hey, Marvel might be on the ropes a little bit because the most recognizable superhero characters are right outside of Spider-Man are about to make their triumphant debut, and it looks darker, it looks more mature. These are things that I was saying at the time too. Like, I'm like, this is gonna be pretty cool. So we were supposed to get that Cyborg solo project, I think. So, like I said, half of those projects were made.
Yeah, Ezra Miller was attached to it immediately,
2014,
right away. Yep.
I think. Yep.
And then, I mean, we could do a whole episode just on this movie itself and what it took to get off the ground. I mean, this goes all the way back to, funny enough, I told you this. So Lord and Miller, obviously of Across the Spider-Verse fame, were tasked with writing the first treatment, with the opportunity of directing it. And instead they opted to direct solo, which obviously that that also had its own problems.
Sure.
So it's just funny how that worked out for them. That this movie that they wrote a treatment for and were going to direct comes, full circle 10 years later, and they put out arguably the best superhero movie of the year, up against this Flash movie, which is really crazy. So Seth Grahame-Smith was going to direct this movie, and this was going to be his directorial debut. He was a producer of Pride and Prejudice, the Pride and Prejudice movie, and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer. There were a couple. James Wan was given the option of the Flash or Aquaman. He obviously chose Aquaman, and good decision.
And the big director that was attached to it of New Star Wars was
Rick Famuyiwa. Yep.
And I remember that was who I just definitively thought was going to direct this movie at some point. This was around like 2016, 2017. Like he was at that point the Flash guy. Like we knew he was going to direct the Flash. And then Justice League came out 2017, and then things just started kind of changing, and obviously it's a direct response. We've already talked about the circumstances behind the 2017 Justice League. Obviously in 2021 we got our Snyder cut of the Justice League, but all in that time there's a limbo for Ezra Miller, and they're making the Fantastic Beasts movies at the time, but there's just this limbo period. And what did we get? We got Wonder Woman in 2017. We got Aquaman also in 2017, or the beginning of 2018?
I think that was 2018.
So we got Aquaman in 2018. You also get Shazam in 2018 or 2017, 2018. But obviously the one movie that's just not coming out is The Flash. That actually, is even more interesting. That from that gap, like the 2017 to 2020 gap, like this movie didn't come out. Like, I don't know what happened in that time. And it's not like you're dealing with, you know what? Actually, now that I say that, I do think they were contending with that TV show a little bit. And there was a little contention because they knew they couldn't just release anything, because obviously the TV show had a big following. It had I remember an era of the Arrowverse, specifically that Flash TV show. Like, people were talking about it like every day. Like, people were talking about this show like weekly, like as this was a show that you needed to watch.
Well, I mean, we also can know because of what happened with Arrow that there was contention with the films, because Warner Brothers made Arrow write the Suicide Squad and Deathstroke out of Arrow.
Out of Arrow. And notoriously, the one character that was missing from the Arrowverse was Batman. He was the one. And
Superman for the longest time.
Until things started happening with Henry Cavill, obviously, and then magically the CW now has a new Superman around that same time, around 2016. So we are in today's day and age. Schneider Cut comes out. In that meantime, however, and I don't even want to dive into this for too long. Ezra Miller starts to have some legal troubles in this time.
Legal troubles. He's putting it nicely.
Right, and that's all I'm going to say on that. If you don't have anything, I don't really want to.
No, I mean it's the only thing I'll say about it is it is perhaps an ignorant amount of support on Warner Brothers' part to keep this thing going and to keep Ezra Miller on board.
Yeah,
and really not reprimand Ezra Miller in any way.
There doesn't seem to be any consequence that we know of. It obviously something but it's not like a consequence for doing something bad in school. Your consequence for doing something poorly as a professional is termination for the most.
There was things happening before the things that happened.
Yeah.
Earlier this year and late last year.
Right.
So I mean, they had plenty of time to address it and just chose not to. I have my own kind of backwards theory on why that is, and I think that's because this movie is underperforming, and I think they're going to be able to point to Ezra Miller and be like, this is why this thing underperformed, and it gives them an excuse to not bring Ezra Miller back in the future. I just think they, despite numerous attempts to promote this movie as the best thing ever, I think deep down they knew what this was, and they would be able to look at Ezra Miller and be like, that's why this movie failed. And which makes me feel like that's why they kept Ezra Miller on board this entire time, because they needed a scapegoat for this disaster that is unfolding. I'm not saying it's totally unfolded, but based on the first 4 days,
box office, and you're talking about a box office when there's essentially 2 holidays in that weekend. You have Juneteenth and you have Father's Day in that weekend, and both those days didn't help this movie at all. No. Versus, I hate to keep using Top Gun as the example, but Top Gun was running through multiple holidays months after this movie had come out and was just performing at all the holiday weekends.
$55 million over the 4-day weekend it's abysmal.
There's a movie that came out last year under the same studio that we thought underperformed but is doing better, and that's Black Adam, which I didn't even think I was going to say. I thought this movie in a summer release, and this is the last movie before Mission Impossible is the next big one. In 3 weeks? And about 3 weeks it's coming out. You would think this whole month, that whole 3-week span, you're just going to perform and this movie's going to make money for that. That's not the case.
No. And it's kind of, you would think that this movie had kind of commercial appeal.
Sure.
At the very least. I mean, it's The Flash. It's a recognized universe. People are aware of the universe of, the Snyderverse, quote unquote. Michael Keaton is back as Batman. It's the first film appearance of Supergirl.
Yep.
This movie had, I thought, at least a certain appeal to it, but whether it's people really not being on board with Ezra Miller, whether it's people not really being into this universe anymore, whether it's the superhero fatigue kind of aspect to it, and people not really knowing what the drawing point of this movie was.
Now, did the hype train kill this movie a little bit?
I think so.
What was it, a month and a half we've been hearing this? Almost 2 months now we've been hearing this thing, because I forget where they showed it. There was some big event where they showed this movie. They had been calling this movie, whoever got into that press screening, people were saying this is one of the greatest movies, and that had been the only we hadn't been hearing the inverse of that. The only thing we had been hearing is this is the greatest superhero movie of all time. This is genuinely one of the best movies of the year, and I've been obviously I had my skepticisms, but at the same time, I was curious. I was maybe this movie does have some pretty cool moments, and, regardless of the Ezra Miller situation, regardless of the studio situation, if you get some cool moments in a movie, that's a selling point.
The flip side of that, too, was I feel like there was this disconnect between what people were saying and what we were seeing. Because we both, when these trailers first started coming out, we were just I don't see it. I'm not seeing the best superhero movie ever.
Yep.
I'm not what is wowing me here?
Right.
That I'm there's this weird disconnect of people are saying this thing and then what I'm actually seeing with my eyes, and I'm just I was just not when we did an episode of the first trailer came out, and I think my first reaction was I didn't really feel anything. Like it just felt like
yeah.
was
So
just there.
let's take the Batman trailer for that first Batman trailer.
right.
So it's 2020. Yep, it's
Oh yeah,
I think it's middle of the pandemic. 2020 DC Fandom comes out. I remember it vividly. I was just watching DC Fandom the whole time, and it was like an all day event. Got to see some cool creators.
Ezra Miller was there.
And it gets to the end. Matt Reeves comes out. They do their little talk, and then they get to the trailer, and I'm like, wow, and like. It's just a wow in the fact that I knew the filmmaking quality was high. I knew the performances were going to be, highly touted. I knew the director of this movie was somebody that was a get. Like, it was a privilege for them to get this person to work on this movie. Not the inverse, actually. Usually it's like a director's privilege to work with the studio. For this one, for me, it's a privilege for the studio to get this type of director. And then obviously the big thing we needed to see was how Robert Pattinson was in the Cape and Cowl. The second he set on vengeance and he beat the brakes off of that guy, I knew it's like, that is a direct, like, this trailer just got me on board for this thing. I didn't feel that for any of these trailers. Like, I kind of knew what I was getting into with all of these. And obviously, the thing I don't want to say, but it could be, is the fatigue might be catching up. And I'm going to keep doubling down on the point, and I feel like I keep getting proved in my point. The days of just being able to release like movies like Ant-Man Quantumania or movies like this are getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. Like, you can't just release something and say this is a superhero movie and everybody be like, all right, this is cool. Like, we're going to rate this differently because it's a superhero movie. Superhero is not a genre of movie. Yeah. These are still movies at the end of the day. So the days of like low quality, but the fact that there's superheroes in movies is going to save it a little bit for your hardcore fans of that character are coming to an end, in my opinion.
And I mean, we're going to talk about that, especially as it relates to DC, because I told you this after we saw the movie, like, they're in a very concerning position right now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, we'll talk about it. We got to talk about this movie a little bit first. So just without spoiling anything, this movie is just the Flash. Barry Allen is not happy with the idea that his mom died, so he decides to run back in time and change events so that his mother lives. It's Flashpoint. Yep. It's Flashpoint. You know what Flashpoint is. Right. In so doing, he runs into a past version of himself, and they embark on a mission to then stop General Zod, who has appeared for the first time in this parallel timeline. In so doing, they recruit Michael Keaton's Batman and Sasha Calle's Supergirl to stop Zod, and Barry learns a lesson that you can't mess with the timeline, Barry, because the time messes back.
Yep.
All in all, I think Ezra Miller is good to great in this. I think they hit moments where the acting is quite good.
Yeah, I have some bits where I'm like, I see, and this is something that we talked about when we were walking out of the movie theater. I don't think there should ever be in anybody's doubt that Ezra Miller is a good to great actor. I think they are actually extremely talented, and they have a track record to prove their talent. It's just packaged in this, and this has been one of my gripes since 2014. I've never seen, and this isn't even a Grant Gustin issue, I've just never seen him as Barry Allen. Like, I've always said he's like much more akin to how Wally West acts, not how Barry Allen acts. So I've never understood how, you go into your studio meetings, you go into your casting meetings, and that's maybe it wasn't even their first choice to play Barry Allen, but I just don't know how that you land on them to play Barry Allen.
Yeah, and I mean
that's not their fault at all.
No.
Yeah.
I think Ezra Miller, like I said, is varying degrees of good to great in this. I'm not as crazy about the young Barry Allen performance that they give. I think Michael Keaton is good in this. He's better than I thought he was going to be. Yep. I was really anticipating a kind of going through the motions, Michael Shannon-esque performance. Yeah. Sasha Calle is great, just not given nearly enough to do or enough to say. And I mean, like we talked about it, the cast is pretty small.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where that movie lives.
It's just Henry Allen and Nora Allen, and then it is just Iris West for maybe 5 minutes of screen time, 5 to 10 minutes of screen time.
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck.
For a bit.
And I have some stuff to say about that Ben Affleck. Mm-hmm. And then I guess we could just launch right into the movie for the rest of the people in here.
Yeah. Because like I said, I overall thoughts. I mean, we'll a lot of this stuff we're going to dive deeper into. Like the CGI obviously is just a disaster. Like that's not even being facetious about it. Like it's legitimately bad. Like it's
yes.
Like people, like you remember when people were doing the screen grabs of Spider-Man No Way Home,
yep.
specifically the image of Flash in the New York kind of the New York green screen. This movie is worse than that.
Yeah.
On numerous occasions. There's just some baffling cinematic CGI choices being made throughout this movie. And like I said, the story is a lot of nothing. I had the comment for you, like, who is this movie for?
Yep.
When we originally found out that the Man of Steel kind of story was being adapted to be the crisis event for this movie, like bringing Zod back, like that felt
hollow to me.
That felt hollow, and it played out very hollow.
Yeah. Yep.
In the movie, like there was no surprise. The only thing I'll say about it is there was the bones of an interesting thing between Kara and Zod.
Yep.
That they never did.
Because they needed, and it's not a bit they needed to play it for, it's a plot point they needed to play it for, but again, just fell hollow. And you know what's funny? I went home and I just threw on Man of Steel, and like, whatever you say about Man of Steel, that just actually feels like a real movie that was made. I think that's another thing I could say about this movie. This movie doesn't feel like organic or real, or like there's like human beings working on this thing. It just feels like something that was digitally printed to be out.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think like there's if you get Michael Shannon a little more motivated, and you make the movie more about her and him. If you can find a way to do that in a Flash movie, I don't think you can. Right. You probably just have to make it an all-Earth Supergirl movie, which probably could have been pretty good. Also, that was a really interesting kind of plot point because. Before we jump into spoilers, the plot surrounding Zod and Kara is she has the blood that can extend the Kryptonian race.
Right, yeah, she has the codex imprinted in her in this universe instead of it being Kal-El in the main timeline. So, like you said, that's a pretty interesting. It's very Flashpoint. It's very like the direct things that Barry did, like the direct thing he did led to like these. The only thing I'll say about it is it's so super specific. It's super specific to like how convenient that it's her instead of him this time.
Yeah.
But besides that, I mean, just some beats in this movie. So the opening, not a fan.
People liked it. Some people liked it. I didn't like it that much.
Yeah, I mean, good things.
The Batman stuff,
and we're gonna talk about that. The suit. I like it. I actually like the new Flash suit.
That was one of the first things in the first trailer that I was like, I like that suit a ton.
Yep.
And I like it.
Yeah, it's cool. So I guess it's a Wayne Tech suit. I guess Bruce helped him build that suit. It dissipates his energy, which actually another solid plot point, like screenwriting point, like they didn't just ignore to the end of the movie, so I actually did appreciate that. But yes, the big conceit was his lightning's yellow now. Why is it not blue? Obviously, because some of the comic Flash fans were upset. Why is this speedster's like? Why is Barry Allen's lightning blue? And they fixed it. They just said the suit, the way it dissipates the energy, it turns it yellow instead of blue, which is actually pretty interesting. So opening this movie, Justice League shenanigans, Batman shenanigans ensue. The rest of the Justice League is called Superman's Too Busy being kicked out of this universe for whatever reason. He's saving people from a volcano. How convenient. Barry helps Bruce. A hospital collapses. Yeah. And then this is when I knew we were in a little bit of trouble. So they did the press screenings, and I guess before the press screenings, they were told that this is an unfinished product, but you're still going to see the whole movie. Apparently what those pressers are saying now is that was the exact same version that they saw, which is extremely concerning. So yeah, the CGI, so basically has to say a bunch of babies and a nurse. It looks bad. It looks so bad.
Bad. Not even like in a
There's no charming way.
No.
There's no. It looks bad.
It looks like a video game.
Looks like a video game. Like, I don't even know if they rendered this thing or if they even went through the last steps to, make anything look like human. Like, it just looks poor. And it's baffling that they were comfortable releasing that. So, opening sequence ensues.
Even him, like, in the suit.
Yeah.
Like, when he's looking around. Looks very rubbery.
Yeah, even when he's running to Gotham from Central City, like, you can tell, like, he's running against this. You can tell he's running against, like, his feet's not matching the ground movement, if that makes sense, so.
Which is really crazy, because I love everything about him running, except him actually running.
Like, in this movie actually has a pretty good point about, the way people complain about how he runs. I'm going to get into it later once we talk about Youngberry, but I think there's a reason for the way that he runs the way he runs, and I think it's like a balance thing. Like, he figured out this is the best way for me not to fall flat on my face if I just run normal.
And I love when we first see him run in the movie, I love that when he puts his foot down in the world and the world warps around him, and I'm like, oh,
these are cool. Like, there's the bones of a really interesting movie in here.
Yeah.
Saves the babies, puts one in a microwave. The meme of the week. Talks about the mental health of the Justice League, which is poor. Then we pick up with Ben Affleck Batman. And
you get a Batman action sequence.
And it is handled pretty dang well. Falcone's idiot kid stole something.
It's so insane to me that he has how many appearances now?
He has what does he have? 7 appearances?
And not a single one.
Batman vs. Superman. We're not counting 2017 Justice League. So Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad,
Justice League.
This. Mm-hmm. There's 2 more, right?
Yep.
What else? I'm missing something.
I don't remember now.
But he's in I think he's in 2 other things if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just I will always double down on this fact that Ben Affleck is my favorite Bruce Wayne. I think he plays and he, spoiler alert, probably has the best line in this movie as well. You would think they would give it to Keaton, but no, they gave it to Ben Affleck, which is awesome. But yeah, he's great. The action's tight. You know what that felt like to me? I don't know if you've ever read the New 52 Court of Owls, like the beginning of it. It felt like the opening to that, because it just picks up and he's just Batman. Because usually what they did with the New 52 was all these characters, like, they did a whole bunch of origins, but he was just Batman already. Like, which good with like Robins, but like it's just picking up with him on the bike or in the car. I forget if he's in the wing in the comic, but he's just picking up on the bike, taking them out. That's just like an armored car rolling through the city. Goes off the cliff. And who's there to save them? This is wrong of me to say, but like, the more I've seen of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, the less I've liked her every single time I've seen her.
Yikes! Like,
I liked her so much in Batman vs Superman. Like, maybe we don't give that movie enough credit. Obviously Wonder Woman, she's great. And then you get to the Snyder Cut, she's still good. I don't like the dialogue she had in the Snyder Cut for the big. It just show the sequence. Like, why is she talk? She doesn't need to talk over this. Obviously, Wonder Woman 84 came out, which I still will say I really like the opening of Wonder Woman 84. I think that opening is very, very superhero opening sequence set in the era. It's good. It's good stuff. And then you get the lifeless cameo in Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Spoiler alert. And then you get this cameo, and I'm like, you're just kind of there all the time now. You're not serving a purpose besides ex machinas at this point. Yeah. Which is just, it really is sad for her character. Maybe this isn't even a Gal Gadot issue. It just feels like they don't know what to do with her, but she says yes to all these.
Well, she's one of we'll talk about it in a little bit, but she's one of the first of many soulless cameos in this movie. But at least I can say in her favor that she actually interacted with the characters.
Right, exactly.
Compared to the others that we'll talk about later.
Right. So, yep, she saves them. Last is the truth. Batman. Good, fun bit. And yeah, so now the movie kind of takes off. So basically, the inciting incident is the trial of Henry Allen. We're gonna do one more plea deal. Bruce helped him get the footage from the grocery store kind of rendered. Unfortunately, he does not lift his head up, so they cannot confirm the alibi that he was at the grocery store when Nora Allen was murdered. So unfortunate. He sees Iris West. I do quite like the actress that plays Iris West, and I wish she was in this movie for a whole lot more. And I wish if they were going to know this was the last movie, why not just do their relationship in this movie?
Why not do a lot of things
in this movie? Yeah. So yeah, basically she's just like, man, what if you can go back and do this? And Barry's like, maybe I can go back and do this. But before this, the big thing is he goes to the house. He just goes back to his childhood house where his mother was murdered. And again, another cool speedster bit where he's just running on the ground and then the lightning's picking up and he just kind of takes off. And here's the thing, goes into the Chrono Bowl. How do you like the concept?
Cool concept.
I think it is a pretty decently cool concept. Like this, like, instead of it just being you show up somewhere that's not yours, I do like this fact that he can kind of like rewind.
Start and stop. Yeah.
It's like he has like a VCR essentially. Like it's actually pretty, I think it's a pretty interesting concept. Like
he's like on a treadmill.
Right. He's on a treadmill.
He's like on a timeline treadmill.
Exactly. So he's like in a dome and like he's like running through a coliseum of all the events. So this is the only thing that I'll say for the CGI. That was what I think he's talking about with the unfinished. I think that I can live with because I'm fine with in the Chrono Bowl piece of the Speed Force that like it looks like this, like it looks like not real yet. It doesn't look like it's finished, which is kind of, you know, it's an interesting concept. Unfortunately, that spilled out into the rest of the movie. That CGI that was in there,
and it also could have just looked better, even if it was supposed to be warped.
Right,
it still could have looked better.
Right, so
like, it still didn't look good.
Right, so Barry kind of appears a day earlier when he was saving the hospital. So he goes to Bruce, and he's just like, "Hey, Bruce, I think I can save my mom. I could save your parents if you want. Like, I save everything." And then he delivers the line of the movie. Hold up, let me find it real quick. We need to get wait music. 100 episodes, you'd think we would get wait music. Apparently not yet, but the line that he delivers to them ever so expertly, in my opinion, and this really just kind of, if this is the last time I'm ever seeing Ben Affleck as Batman, this I think is a incredible way to go out.
Sure.
So Barry says, "Hey, I can, we don't need to feel this pain anymore," for lack of a better term, and then Bruce says to Barry, "These scars we have, they make us who we are. We're never meant to go back and fix them. There's nothing broken with you that needs to be fixed. Take it from an old guy who's made a lot of mistakes. Don't live in your past. Live your life. Don't let your tragedy define you."
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It is good stuff. It defines Bruce Wayne as a character. It goes back to that comic book relationship, and one of the best lines in comics is, when Bruce tells Barry, like, the same thing that happened to me happened to you, but you turned out as this beacon of hope. Not what I turned into. Like, if my parents die, I wish I would have turned out like you instead of the way that I turned out. And I really love that. I think that came from the Button event or from the end of Flashpoint. I can't remember which one, but just a really great line. And I love the relationship.
If only we'd seen more of it.
More of it, yep.
That's the other problem I have with this movie is felt like a lot of Barry's character development and a lot of like his rapport building with Batman specifically happened off screen.
Mm-hmm. Right, and to me that's more of a universe issue. I don't think.
It's absolutely a universe issue.
Right,
but Barry doesn't listen.
Yep, Barry's like, you know what, I can, I can fix this. Like, I can do this.
So he runs back in time.
Yep, he's like, I have a plan. Like, well, the thing is, Bruce is like, you can't interact with your past. Like, all the, the Back to the Future rules, which is Back to the Future is actually super important in this movie. He says, all right, well, he goes to Iris, and Iris is just like, maybe I don't need to interact with anybody. Maybe if I just make sure she has the can of tomatoes in the first place, my dad never has to go to the store, and this random person on the street doesn't have to murder my mother, who definitely isn't the Reverse Flash.
Oh my God. Yeah, Let's talk about the Reverse Flash.
In the room.
Or not in the room.
Or not in the room. The Dark Flash.
But yeah. So there's that element of it. Mm-hmm. But then there's also just her murder's never solved.
Right.
in this movie.
Yep. Yep.
like all of that happens and you never get to it's not a post-credit scene. Nothing. It's so baffling.
The post-credit scene we do get is a little street shenanigans with
Drunk Aquaman?
Drunk Aquaman.
Drunk Jason Momoa.
Drunk Jason Momoa said, absolutely not will I show up in a scene where the Justice League is assembled, but I will show up in a scene where I'm stumbling drunk throughout Central City.
He just showed up drunk on the
on set, and Andy Muschietti's like, somebody bring me my camera, quick. Yeah, he was going to the Aquaman filming, and he's just like, am I too soon? I'm too soon.
That was fun. It was a fun
Yeah, that was a fun little,
But, I mean, Jason, it's just extending the legacy of Jason Momoa as just this charisma, like... Enhancer. Yeah. Who, like, everything he's in, he's just effortlessly good in.
Right.
Is he a good actor? I think he is.
Questions can be asked. So he goes into the Chrono Bowl. There's this being in the Chrono Bowl, though.
That shoves him out.
Yeah. What are you doing? This is my Chrono Bowl, boss.
Yeah.
Get to stepping.
It's like a jump scare, jump scare.
Horror jump scare. Andy Muschietti's like, I did 2 horror movies.
Pushes
before.
him out. He arrives.
Am I too soon? I'm too soon. So he fixes it. He goes back. He makes sure they have the can of tomatoes. And when he's trying to run back, this dark flash pushes him out of the Chrono Bowl, and he arrives when he is 18. So 10 years, I think, because 2023, 2013. So this Barry Allen is 28. So he goes back to 2013. There was a movie that came out in 2013 in this universe. The first one, actually.
Yeah.
He goes to the house, jump scares Nora. Nora's just like, "Hi, monkey. I love you. You're back." Mm-hmm. And this is where it's another part of the skeleton of a really great movie is in here too, and it's the relationship between him and his mother. It is great. I do like the actress they picked to play his mother. Mm-hmm. And that is a piece that I do genuinely feel in this movie, like something that It works. It plays. You understand how much he misses her. And actually, my favorite line from the movie is a counter to young Barry not feeling that yet. But yeah, they go back. His father's there, and he's like, "Cool. Everything's cool." However, stupid 18-year-old young Barry is there, and he's like, "Oh crap."
Yep.
Yeah.
Typical. Meets himself, and he has to figure out a way to explain it away. And then he also figures out that not only is today the day, but today's the day he gets his powers.
Right.
So he has to make sure that young Barry gets his powers so that, it doesn't cause a thing where he loses his powers and then he can't go home.
Right.
So they set that up.
Right. Because he wouldn't have been in the crime lab if his mother never died. He would have never gotten into criminal justice. So they take him to the crime lab. He's just like, "All right, young Barry, you're going to get doused in chemicals." He's like, "That's not too bad." Then you're going to get struck by lightning. He's like, "Excuse me? I'm going to get what?" He gets struck by lightning. It goes through, original Recipe Barry goes through young Barry. Young Barry's got his speed. It worked. Old Barry lost his speed. Oh no. So yeah, they try the phasing, doesn't work. And then probably one of the most notable comedic scenes from this, he tries to launch into his run, and then he's just galloping throughout the corridor in the Central City PD. I thought that was funny.
It was funny.
Yeah. Got a good laugh out of the theater.
And then, coincidentally enough, not only was this the day that he got his powers, but it's also the day Zod invaded.
What a crazy, what a crazy day. What a crazy week.
So Zod's invading. He's like, "I'm looking for the last living Kryptonian," and Ezra Miller, or Barry Allen's like, "We gotta find Superman. Like, Superman will save this." But he can't find... There's no traces of Clark Kent anywhere. So he's like, "All right, next best thing. I gotta go find Batman."
Yeah.
Because Batman will know what to do.
Right.
So he goes to Wayne Manor to find Bruce Wayne.
Why does this Wayne Manor look different? This Wayne Manor looks like a Tim Burton movie. What's
it
going
looks
on?
very gothic.
Yeah.
He gets there and he's like, "Hello, Bruce? Brucey Bruce, you there?"
Yep.
And lo and behold, it's Michael Keaton.
Old man Keaton beating the crap out of... you got that in the movie, too. They were, intentionally beating the crap out of Ezra Miller the whole movie.
Yeah.
just old Barry was just one after another, just either had blood on his face Barry would have blood on his face, he would get punched, he would get stuff thrown at him, he would throw up. Like, was that a gag? Or like, what was I don't know. Like, it was that scene where I noticed, I was like, he's been like hurt a lot at this point in the movie.
They do a callback to Justice League with the frying pan.
Yep.
Where he does the slow motion turn. And then they confront Keaton, and he's like, help me, Batman. Obi-Wan Batman, Kenobi, you're my only hope.
Right.
Batman's like, get lost.
Yeah, get lost. Actually, let's eat some spaghetti, and then I'm going to explain the multiverse to you, and then you can get lost.
Yeah, it's typical old man past his prime, doesn't want anything to do with anything anymore. Gotham's the safest city it's ever been.
Good job.
Good job, Michael Keaton.
You might be the first Batman that you can say that for.
He just retired.
Yeah, he did. He's just like, man.
Job done.
Yeah. Well, when you're murdering people like that, as he did.
Yeah. So yeah, he explains the multiverse to Barry through spaghetti. I still think the best explanation of time travel and multiverse theory, funny enough, is when John Wesley Shipp did it. And he, with the broken mug.
Yep.
I still think that's the best way to do it. Michael Keaton basically launches into a similar logic. Well,
so basically they do the inverse of Endgame, and both movies called out. Obviously, Endgame did it retroactively, but there's the Marvel branching timeline thing. So, as Bruce Banner said, your past can't change whatever he said. Like, your past can't be changed by your new, present, future. That also came from your whatever the crap he said.
Because when you time travel back into the past, that becomes your present.
Right, not your past. Yeah. Right. But for this, what this Bruce Wayne is saying is that time isn't linear. So. Right. You know, you changing your past might
changes it both ways.
Both ways. It's not like it won't. It's not. Or he said it's retrocausal.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Which one you like? Which one are you subscribed to?
I guess it honestly just depends on the universe. Like, they both make sense within the confines of their own universe. I'm more kind of leaning like this one makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Because like if you go back and change a specific thing, it's going to ripple through time both ways. Like, it has to. Because everything leading up to that moment inherently has to be different, and everything following that moment obviously has to be different. So that does make sense. And then he kind of further explains, like, you're not also changing one singular timeline.
Yeah.
You're creating
it's
new
a
ones.
fulcrum. So now the old timeline is changed, and this new timeline is now
created.
Right, at an intersect between where that old timeline decision point was made.
Yeah.
So interesting. That's actually not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. So, but he's just like, no, will you help us? And he's like, nope, I'm good. Absolutely not. I'm going to go eat the spaghetti in my room. I'm out.
So, Barry, knowing Batman knows where the Batcave is, goes down there, and he decides he's going to launch to investigating Superman for himself. He fails.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the ship never landed in Kansas. He finds out he landed in Siberia instead. So they go to Siberia. But he does, before this, have a heart-to-heart with Bruce. He's just like, Bruce, if everyone's the same, I see you had an Alfred, that means you must have had parents that died. And then Keaton's just like, you know what? I'm in. Before, there's actually a really good scene between old and young Barry that I actually think is one of the highlights of this movie.
Yep.
Basically, young Barry's messing around. He's got powers now. He can't keep it together. And Barry's just like, do you not understand, like, what's happening? Like, literally your universe is going to end in a couple days if we don't find the Superman. And, you're just not taking anything seriously. And he's just like, all right, Mom, relax. And he's just like, shut up.
Why did you say that name?
Right. He's just like, shut up. Like, do you understand, like, what you are and, like, what you have? And you just walk around like, you're the coolest guy in the room, and, like, you have no responsibility. And he's like, and young Barry's like, I don't want, like, what's your problem? Like, he's just like, what's your damn? And he's just like, you used monkey as a dartboard. He's just like, okay, I played with a toy. What's the issue? But obviously this young Barry hasn't lost his mom. Like, old Barry's lost everything. So really good scene. That, I think, is the peak of what Ezra Miller's acting was in this movie.
Yep.
So yeah, they go to Siberia. Some fun bits, and Keaton is back, baby. How do you feel?
It's fine. It's fine.
I think it's solid. The action, I think all the Batman action across the whole movie is Batman action. It's Batman ripped from comic action, in my opinion. I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
It's fluid. Obviously, you got to suspend your disbelief that a 66-year-old man is moving like this, but who cares? Who cares?
And he's like properly like brutal.
Yeah. It's understood that he's been through some stuff. And obviously the Batgirl movie got canceled, but it made me intrigued of like an old man Bruce Wayne that still is a little active, but has has some Robins and some Batwomans and Batgirls around.
So they get to a big thing, a big pod, and they're like, "That's where I would keep a Superman if I had one."
Yeah, if I had one.
So they get in there, and it's a lady.
Yeah,
it's a lady Superman.
What the heck?
No, a woman.
Yeah. Well, relax. She's weighing about 75 to 100 pounds, malnourished.
They pull her out.
There's a super suit laying on the ground. Yeah. Where's my super suit? They try to escape. A little bit with the how much do you weigh?
Oh, the tape measure bit.
Yep.
That was
and
great.
then the flip phone. He said, "Is he gonna hack the Russians using a flip phone?" Yep. They escape, but then all the armies up there. They're like, "Ah, crap, Batman, what do we do?"
It's the trailer bit.
Right. And Supergirl's like, I'm going to kill some people real quick. Hold on. Clears out. They do like a little one take in there, clear out the room. CGI is not great.
Nope.
You think it would improve from the trailers, but it's the same. It's literally the exact same frames from the thing. So
they get back to Wayne Manor. Supergirl's there, and they're like, "Can we stop Zod?" And she's like, "Nah." Don't care. Don't care about humanity.
Yeah. Well, I'm Kara Zor-El. I'm Kal-El's cousin, but he was an infant when he left. I don't know where he is.
Yeah.
But all right, let's do it. And Old Barry's like, all right, well, she leaves. She's just like, you know what? Humans suck because they held, like, why am I going to save this planet? But they just held me captive for 33 years, I think it was, up until that point that they said.
Yeah.
So she's just like, I'm out.
But then she sees what Zod is doing.
Right, yeah. Zod's about to terraform this Earth, and she's just like, maybe not. Maybe they're not horrible. Well, she also has that little heart-to-heart with Young Barry where he's just like, there are good people. And, like, she also understands, you guys just also saved me, too. So maybe you guys aren't all bad. But then we do the Flashpoint bit where Barry needs to get his powers back. He's just like, well, we're going to need some help against the Kryptonian army, so I got to get my speed back. They electrify him and then douse him with the chemicals. Doesn't work. Supergirl shows back up. She's just like, you know what? Let me fly you up here. Because if he dies, he dies. So,
pretty much.
Yep. Fly him up there, gets electrocuted. He's healing. And yeah, it's on. So, we don't have the full might of the Justice League, but we got an old Batman and we got a Supergirl.
And two Flashes.
A
flash of two Earths, you might say.
Come on, man.
You want to get nuts?
Want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts.
Hollow.
Didn't need it.
Didn't land. That's all right. Third act. We're here, baby.
We're here in the wasteland.
Yeah, we're here in the wasteland because because Man of Steel happened. So never can a superhero action sequence take place in a city ever again.
And then it's just superhero third act happens. A lot of flying, a lot of running around, punching.
Yep.
And then we get basically this is basically the end of the movie because we live in this action sequence till the end of the movie.
Well, so the big things that happen is Keaton's Batman dies.
Yeah, he flies into a ship.
Right. So Keaton's Batman dies. Supergirl finds out that Kal-El was murdered when he was an infant, so in this universe they did find the pod that he was in. They tried to get the codex out of him. The infant did not survive. And she's just like, Sasha Calle is actually putting some numbers up. She's like, what did you do? And then, just goes berserker mode. Much more adept fighter than Cal was at that point, which I really appreciate too. So yeah, it's on. But she also dies. She gets killed by Zod and then they harvest the codex. Young Barry is starting to come into his own. Only issue he has is he's building too much charge when he's running. But yeah, they're working together. He gets a scar on his face though, but he's just like, you know what? Let's take these Kryptonians out that are near unkillable.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about that?
It was a little wacky. Like, it was a little bizarre.
That, like, these Flashes are, like, taking out,
Kryptonians.
That are essentially... What's the only conceit, if I remember, is that Cal had been, he didn't have a suit on, so he was just soaking up that the solar radiation as, like, they're in these suits to protect themselves against the atmosphere, so they can't really, they're not as strong as what Cal would have been at that point.
I guess.
So yeah, they young Barry's like, you know what? I'm going back. You said we could go back. Let's go back. So they do it the first time, and they're like, all right, you know what you're going to change, old Barry? Yup. You know what you're going to change, young Barry? Yup. Let's do it again.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. And old Barry's like, oh crap, this is exactly what Bruce was talking about. This is a fixed point that Supergirl and Bruce need to die in this moment. And young Barry is like, nope. You came all this way from the future. You're telling me I have powers now and I just magically can't fix this? I'm not believing it. So he keeps doing it and keeps doing it.
Keeps getting like impaled
by stuff, and he's just like, I'm fine. Let's go again. And old Barry's like, you need to stop. Meanwhile, God.
Here we go.
Meanwhile, these other Earths just start showing up in the Chrono Bowl, which me saying that out loud doesn't make any sense. Like, why I don't get it.
I guess because they're just fracturing reality to that degree that it's opening up the chasm between Earths, basically.
Okay.
And bringing them kind of closer together.
It's not like an incursion event. I mean, it is.
I guess it is.
But
I guess it's that version of an incursion. Like, them going back in time and changing things so many times, it's creating too many timelines at once.
Which the timelines are retrocausal, so
it's affecting everything else.
Okay.
That's besides the point. What isn't besides the point is these soulless mannequin CGI people that they put in for a crowd pop and nothing more. Nothing more, nothing less. It's horrifying.
It's not good.
So yeah, I mean, I'll just go down this list one by one and we can talk about how horrifying it is. So first and foremost, we go to the black and white 50s universe, and they bring back George Reeves, who was the Superman of the 40s, who tragically committed suicide. Well, there's a whole thing about his death, but yeah, horrible. Didn't have to do it.
You see 1960s Adam West Batman.
You also see Jay Garrick, who is a
CGI mangled mess. Like,
NPC?
You don't know who it is. Like, I guess, you know what's crazy? I think it looked so bad that people were like, it has to be Teddy Sears, because that's the closest we can get to this.
And Teddy Sears was like,
it's not me. And John Wesley Shipp didn't say anything, but it's not him, but I think it is supposed to be him.
Who knows?
God.
Yeah, they do.
But it's the suit from the CW, though.
Yeah. It's they have Adam West just doing.
Yep. You hear
stock dialogue.
Yep. You hear Cesar Romero laughing,
and you hear Adam West saying something about the Joker. Dumb. It's dumb. It's super dumb. We get, and then another big one. We get Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater, Superman and Supergirl. Helen Slater is still alive, and they CGI'd her anyway. And then, I mean, the Christopher Reeve thing, again, just totally soulless.
Yeah.
And without any type of merit or reverence, honestly. And then we get...
probably the best one.
Yeah, so they lean back into the...
But, okay, go ahead, but I have an issue with it, and it's a general audience issue, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, I agree. Yeah, so we see another Superman fighting a giant spider. He's got long, flowing black hair. We turn the camera around, and it's Nicolas Cage.
But it's full-out CGI Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, fighting a giant spider, and then that's those are your cameos.
If you don't know the story, Kevin Smith was supposed to direct a Superman movie, and Nicolas Cage would have been his Superman.
Well, no, he didn't have one. Cage was Burton's Superman.
Right. Yep. Oh, right. You're right. Yep. Cage was Burton's Superman, and
so they just kind of like mixed those two
exactly
backstories together,
to
give us this,
which is. It's too niche to be...
It's too inside baseball.
It's way too inside baseball. It's way too niche, because, like, there's, like, niche stuff that you can throw into stuff. Like, Crisis does that extremely well. But this is too niche, because this thing never got made in the... Like...
It's an internet meme,
even John Krasinski being Reed Richards made sense, because he'd been relentlessly fan cast as this character, and obviously he's not going to play the character, so good time to use it. Internet's at its high. Do it. But, like, this one is way too, like, small knit circle thing to try to do.
Other things you could have done instead of these.
I need, like, the music to start playing before you do it too.
Brandon Routh. Could have brought Brandon Routh in.
Well, that should have been the one that should have been Christopher Reeve. Should have been Brandon Routh.
Tyler Hoechlin. Could have done Tyler Hoechlin.
Yep.
Could have done Christian Bale, honestly.
Could have done Tom Welling.
Could have done Tom Welling. Could have done any cast of characters from the CW Arrowverse.
Yep.
Any of them.
Yep.
Notwithstanding Grant Gustin.
Yep.
Grant Gustin's the biggest admission here.
We have some thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to do it now? You want to do the
No,
Grant
let's
Gustin
wait.
thing now?
Let's wait because I think we could talk about that when we think about what movie this should have been.
Could have done Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? What was the opening bit of this movie, the opening credits of this movie? It was a trek through all of the different logos throughout DC. So again, this movie, one of the sells with this movie, I think, was take a journey throughout the past of the DC universe from the 1940s till now. And they just didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like for 95% of the movie.
You could have got really crazy and done an Across the Spider-Verse-esque thing and did Kevin Conroy.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't know when they filmed any of this stuff or when they made it, because from what I'm thinking is this movie was made up until the last possible second.
Yeah.
Is what me walking out of that theater kind of put two and two together.
There's so many other legacy things they could have done and had them interact with the story in some way instead of just being these mannequins,
like
as I described them.
We're going to talk about it once we talk about our final thoughts, but I don't know why this movie feels like it's so against the CW. Like, I feel like it tried to sun the CW to its own demise, because there's way more versions of better stories in the CW. Forget about the bad CGI, whatever you guys want to talk about, or like, you know, the bad dialogue or like the cheesy stuff. Like, one thing the CW always got from the beginning was the understanding of where these characters came from and the legacies that they came from.
Yeah.
And this was and they didn't even need to do any of that. This movie, in my opinion, a little bit needed to do that as one of the selling points. You know, you bring Keaton back, you might as well, you know, go full send. But I just think this movie was afraid to do some of those things.
Yeah.
And I think their last ditch effort was like, well, we don't need to ask any of these actors to come on and do any real physical roles. But let's resurrect these people that had passed away. In some to horrible due to horrible circumstances, when you also had two Supermen that could have just stepped in the role.
Or
you probably could have just put Henry Cavill in this movie. But why would you?
Yeah, why would you? So that gross CGI mess happens, and then the Dark Flash reappears.
Right.
And he's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Barry's like, whoa.
Yeah, old Barry's like, hey, can we just talk for a second, boss?
And then young Barry returns and wallops the Dark Flash, and then dun dun dun. It is in fact
obviously
it is in fact the young Barry who is the Dark Flash doing this in perpetuity over and over and over again.
Could have seen that coming from 50 miles
away. He created this, and he tells Barry, like, I'm close to figuring it out. And
no,
Barry's
you
like,
idiot.
No, you're not. And then he goes to kill older Barry, the Dark Flash does, and then younger Barry steps in the way, kills himself, closing the loop, kills the Dark Flash. Thank you for showing up, Dark Flash. With your 2 minutes of screen time. And then Barry's like, I gotta go. I gotta go fix this. I gotta make sure my mom dies.
Well, before that, there's another, you know, heart to heart, not really a heart to heart moment, but there's like an angered moment where, you know, you see, you know, young Barry becoming Dark Flash, where he's just like, all right, well, I know mom died, but she doesn't need to, right? We're good, right? And Barry's like, did you not listen to anything that Batman said earlier? Like, you can't just keep doing that. Look, you're destroying the fabric of reality right now.
Look at Christopher Reeve.
Look at George Reeve over there.
He's looking at us.
Yeah, look at Nicolas Cage.
Fighting that spider.
Why is he there? But he's just like, he's like, nobody else dies. And then, you know, he goes to actually try to kill the old Barry too, and he's just like, all right, maybe I am getting a little crazy. So yeah, he goes back into time, and this is, you know, it's funny, you had it in the beginning and you had it at the end, and what the biggest emotional issue with this movie is, there's way too much time in the middle of that movie with no emotional beats in the middle of that movie. Way too much time elapses in between it, to the point where, you know, you'd had so much stuff going on with, like, you know, Bruce Wayne's here, Supergirl's here, they're fighting Zod, and then you get to the end of the movie, you're like, oh, I forgot about what the emotional core of this movie is.
Yeah,
so,
he gets back to the supermarket.
but it's such a good scene.
It's so good.
And that's what's so frustrating about it.
It's so good when he goes back.
It's retrocausal, because there's nothing in the middle of it to,
He goes back to the supermarket to undo what he had previously done.
I gotta find out the actress that plays his mom, because
he sees his past Flash self put the can in and run off, so now he seizes the moment to go back in, and he bumps into his mom, and he's a mess, and she's just saying like, hey, like, are you okay? And he's like, I just really miss my mom. And she's like, well, make sure you tell her that. They hug. She's like, I know I'm a total stranger in a supermarket, but can we hug?
Oh man, because he's just like, my mom's like a
great lady.
She's a great lady, and like, you see it.
And then she's, she goes, make sure you tell her that, because moms love to hear that sort of stuff. And they hug, and then he slows down time so that he can pull away from her and get the tomato can out and put it back on the shelf. And he goes back to her and he tells her he loves her. And
Mary Belle Verdu.
Yeah,
I think she is quite spectacular in the limited time she has.
And he parts ways with his mom for the last time.
Well, he speeds up, and while he's holding her, so he can hold on to that moment, for as long as he can. And he gives her the line, probably the line of the movie, like, I love you, like, I love you more. I loved you first. Like, man. That hurted.
Yeah, it's super. It's really, really good. I can't. As much as I really wasn't crazy about this movie, that moment was really, really good. Mm-hmm. And then he gets back to the present.
Well, he looks up at the security cam. Mm-hmm. I have an idea.
Yeah.
Gets back. I fixed it. Zod no more.
Yep.
My pal Superman's probably flying
That other
around.
universe got destroyed.
Yeah. Adios. well, right, yeah. Zod murked that universe. Yeah. So, goodbye, Earth.
Yep. Goodbye, Earth of that universe.
Right.
Yeah, he gets back. He's late for the trial. He gets there, and then they show the evidence of the security camera, and Henry Allen looks up.
Because the tomatoes are now on the top shelf.
And he's a free man. He's free to go.
Did Barry learn his lesson?
Nope. He just learned to break time in a less egregious way.
But, jeez. But did he?
Well.
So, Bruce calls in a scene that obviously was shot, what's today's date? The 20th?
Yeah.
This movie released on the 16th, in a scene that I'm going to assume they shot on Monday before this movie came out, and I am not even joking. I genuinely think this scene was shot probably a week ago. Because Barry's hair is very different, like horrible green screen behind them.
Yeah.
Bruce is just like, hey, boss, I'm coming.
Hey, boss.
What's going on? I'm on the way. Barry's like, thank you so much. I'll see you in it. Bruce, I fixed everything. I did it. Sorry, but I fixed it. Don't worry about it. So car pulls up. Person gets out. You see the shoes, and then you see the top of the head, and you're like, oh, there comes, Keaton. It possibly might look like.
Yeah.
And then it's just the security guard walks out. And lo and freaking behold... Let's rank our Batman from top to bottom real quick.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Just really quick.
Live action?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go really quick. I'm going to go... God, I'm going to get people mad, but I'm going to go Batfleck. I'm going to go Pattinson. I'm going to go Christian Bale. I'm going to go Keaton, and then I'm going to go Michael Keaton, or I'm going to go Adam West, then what's his name from freaking Top Gun? God.
Val Kilmer?
Yeah, Val Kilmer. And then...
Yeah.
Do your list real quick.
Probably Bale, Affleck, Pattinson, Keaton, West, Clooney, Kilmer.
And then. Yeah. Who's at the bottom of that list? 3, 2, 1.
Clooney.
George Clooney.
Yeah.
Shows up out of this car, and I was like... Excuse me? Of all the people you could have called, you called George Clooney.
We get an F-bomb.
Yep. Who the F is this?
Which I did laugh at. I thought it was a good bit, to be honest with you. Because I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting for him to just be like, who the F is this? Like, I actually did laugh at that.
He's just like, who are you? And he's just like, what's wrong with you, Barry?
I will say this, though. As an older Bruce Wayne, I buy Clooney 130%.
I buy him as still continuing the Playboy persona.
Yeah.
Because usually older...
Because he's George Clooney.
Right, because usually older Bruce Waynes kind of get out of that and they'd seen too much. Like, I buy him as still doing, like, the trials and tribulations as, like I buy... Because a lot of older Bruce Waynes will stop with Wayne Enterprises and stuff. I buy him as still being integrated in Wayne Enterprises, still doing, like, all that stuff. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's not as bad as we thought it was. It's idiotic.
It's so dumb.
Because, again, is it too much inside baseball? That's the question you have to ask.
Probably.
Is it
because he has the least amount of kind of gravitas as Batman, you know? Mm-hmm. But who else were you going to get besides Bale? And I don't think Bale would have done it.
Yeah, I think Bale... And, you know, if Thor Love and Thunder was a different movie, I think Bale probably would have said yes. But you made a great point when we were walking out of the theater. I think the true reason that... I do think they might have called Bale and just said, can you just walk it? Because he's a younger... He would have been, you know... around Ben Affleck's age as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I think the reason he said no was because he has too much respect for Christopher Nolan, and he doesn't want to tarnish that legacy by showing up and having the nerds run around and be like, is he going to be the DCU? No, obviously. It's going to be Jensen Ackles, you idiots. But...
yeah, so Clooney shows up. And then,
his tooth falls out.
Dumb. It's a callback to a minor thing that happened earlier in the movie. And then the movie ends.
Yep. Can I give them the thought that I had when I walked out?
Yeah.
This is a Joel Schumacher Flash movie. This is the best
You're not
way
wrong.
I can explain
right down
this
to
movie.
the George Clooney appearance.
Right down to the George Clooney appearance. I think that Joel Schumacher is the one that wrote this movie, and I think he is the one, you know, man.
I just don't get it, man. I don't get it. So, all right. So Grant Gustin, right? We have to talk about this. It's inevitable. Why was he just nowhere to be seen in this movie?
The CW was nowhere to be seen outside of one suit and a mangled mess of a CGI figure.
Fake Garrick.
Fake Garrick. Like I said, I think this movie was trying to sun the CW in a bit, been like, you idiots, we're doing this.
We're doing a real Flash movie.
We're doing real Flash this time. It never reached any of the heart that Flash show had reached. We were walking out of the theater, we were talking about the highs that the Flash TV show hit were exponentially high in terms of the comic book,
ran circles around
movies.
What this was.
Yeah. Like, the one I called back to was, the feeling of the first, and something I talked about when we talked about the Flash TV show, just the aura of those first 3 seasons, like, cheesy dialogue, cheesy villains, whatever, like, the back half of each 3 of those seasons hit like an ignition point from episode 10 to episode 9 to episode 23 that like this movie would have just dreamed to reach those heights. Is like tension, like, character building. And one thing that I loved was Grant Gustin was evolving this whole time as a character. And again, this is a universe issue for the DCEU. It's like not enough time spent with this character. Like we just kind of pick up with him and then he's just, this new age Flash.
Yeah, and it goes back to the problem that I had making this movie a Flashpoint movie to begin with was why are we caring? Why are we so invested in Barry Allen? Mm-hmm. We're not really. Like, we haven't been conditioned to. Mm-hmm. Where, like, the Flash TV series did Flashpoint in season 3.
Yep.
Where we had
even then, we were calling it, like, is this too early to do Flashpoint?
And it wasn't... And it still worked because they had built up that gravitas of, like, Barry really loved his mom and like really wanted to save her.
Not only that is he came to peace with his mom dying and then his father was immediately taken from him and he's just like, nope, I cannot live in a life I can't live a life like this. I can't. And then also, retroactively looking like the rest of Flash season 3 had consequence that whole you felt the consequence the whole time, that whole season. Mm-hmm. The villain of the show was built upon that, upon that consequence as well. So
yeah, and that's the other thing that this movie doesn't do. There's no reverse Flash. There's no inciting incident for his mom's murder. None of that.
Yep.
It's crazy. Yep. It is crazy.
Not a post-credit scene. Like, there's nothing. Like, now,
we thought, obviously, younger Barry turned out to be this Dark Flash who's TV series wise is closer to Savitar than the Reverse Flash.
Right.
Like, we had always figured that he was just going to end up being the Reverse Flash, wearing Barry's face.
Right.
But nah, he was just this monstrous dark Flash who just gets dealt with.
Immediately. Zod dealt with.
Yeah.
Or Zod's not even dealt with.
Well, yeah, Zod's not dealt with. Because Zod's, you said it to me when we left, like, the movie has a villain problem.
It has a huge villain problem.
Because Zod's not the villain.
No.
He's there.
Yeah, the third act is the greatest villain of this movie, and the DCEU is the greatest villain of this movie.
Yeah, because, I mean, we can run through it if you want, of, like, ways this movie could have worked.
Option one, instead of doing Young Barry, find a way to get Grant Gustin in this movie and have them do something where it's like, why the heck do you look like me? Like, and you can follow up the scene from Crisis and be like, and then that would be crazy if you pluck that Grant Gustin and like he has this whole adventure during that Crisis event, because remember in Crisis in episode 4 he was gone for like months and they didn't see him for months and he just came back. What did he do in that whole time? What if this is one of the things that he did? He's just like,
and you already built into your universe that they can look different,
right? Yep.
And be the same character.
Yep.
So you could have, but I told you when we left, they didn't want to do that because they would have ended this movie and people would have been like, that guy should just be the Flash.
Yeah, like
he's better.
Yeah, like once they get back to the original timeline, it would be so much better if it's just Grant Gustin in the suit than Ezra Miller. And then on top of that, the No Way Home in the room, like, you know, as much as we love Andrew Garfield, like Tom Holland was still acting his butt off in that movie, like especially, you know, the bits with Aunt May, the bits on the rooftop, like he was holding his own against these guys that were our Spider-Man for so long. Like in this case, I think that immediately Grant Gustin would have been like, all right, he just is not the Flash, it's this Barry Allen, which would have been like, I just want to see him as Barry Allen essentially.
Yeah, and he's been with the character so much longer and in so much more of an intimate way.
Yep.
I mean, when you're talking about 9 seasons of TV versus a few films, Grant Gustin's with that character for a decade.
It's insane that they were cast as Barry Allen around the same time. Not like, you know, they were cast. This is the same character around the same time. And Grant Gustin has just went hoops and hoops through, you know, different trials and tribulations of the character versus this is his first solo movie. Like, this is the first solo movie with Barry Allen in live action. And versus we've gotten, you know, 9 seasons, crossovers with different characters, interactions with Superman, interactions with Supergirl that are infinitely better.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that the CW did better was just the respect to the past iterations of different characters.
Yep.
I think
and the culmination of that is the handling of Brandon Routh through proxy being the
heir apparent to Christopher Reeve.
Exactly. The handling of that and the Kingdom Come universe and just, you know, the lines thrown out like, you know, I put the black in the chest so it's you know,
the hope shines through the darkness.
Like stuff like that. Like that should have been what took up, you know, more time in either the third act or the second act to get you to this end goal.
Yeah.
So.
Even when they brought in Kevin Conroy for Crisis on Infinite Earths to play Bruce Wayne in live action. They've used Helen Slater before as Kara's mom in the Supergirl TV show. They used Dean Cain for a bit before he became problematic. You know, just I could go down a list. Linda Carter was involved in the CW universe as the president, obviously the actress who played Wonder Woman. They got Ezra Miller, for Christ's sake, to be in Crisis on Infinite Earths.
One of the best parts about that crossover, too. And like I said, what they should have pulled from that is
they brought Tom Welling back. Like, and even down to like the super small, they did better versions of what this was because, you know, they were going to the other Earths. Like, they just pulled stock footage from the other things. Like footage, they had Burt Ward show up as Dick Grayson.
Exactly. Whoever that one guy that was in the
Batman 89.
Right.
Yep.
Like, just better handling of the multiverse in there.
And they felt like involved.
Right.
Whereas, like, again, I go back to that scene and it's just they're just mannequins. They're storeroom mannequins just observing.
Right.
Besides Cage's Superman, who does a full CGI action bit.
Right.
God. It's baffling to me that they didn't at all utilize Grant Gustin at all.
Yep. The fact that Reverse Flash should have been in this movie, because the best part about that Flashpoint comic, amongst all the crazy stuff that's going on, all the the Atlantean Amazonian War, like this new version of the Justice League, like all these things, it's Thomas Wayne instead of Bruce Wayne. The best part is when Reverse Flash shows up, and like in your head you're like, okay, he did this, and then he's just like, nope, I'm just here to just rub it in your face that you did this to yourself. Is so genius. It's so smart. And like this movie could have used that. Even if it's Ezra Miller right in the face and then you find an actor, I mean, probably there's a universe where there's the DCU doesn't die after this, but even that, like, it's I killed your mom and like, but you still had to go back and try to fix it, and look what you've done. You just destroyed the entire Earth.
Even if you get a Krasinski-esque fan casted person.
What did they not put the guy that they had for that in the movie? I forget what the actor's name that plays Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones.
Nikolai Kloster was Joe or something like that.
So I don't know what the story is, but I don't know if he was attached to play Reverse Flash at some. I think he was attached to play Reverse Flash in an early iteration of this movie. He cameos in this movie as a guy that Young Barry just steals a slice of pizza from when he's on his first run. Man, that would have even played even better if this random guy that he stole a slice of pizza was from his ultimate enemy in time. Like, is it too niche? So, like, this one I would have been okay with, because
if you wanted to do that, or if you wanted to like give Anthony Starr a call, like, he could play a menacing villain like on a whim.
Yeah, just get him in there for a second.
Call Tom Cavanaugh, for Christ's sake.
That would have played, man. That would have played.
Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
there's a million ways you could have done it.
Yeah, those are my two big things. Is that the Young Barry, Old Barry, it works some of the time. It doesn't work all the time. There's a lot of you would think at a middle bit in the movie that Young Barry would learn a thing or two, which technically, on paper he does, but it's not enough. Like,
he dies at the end.
Well, and then he dies at the end. Yeah, he doesn't have that moment where he kind of like flips the switch. Because you know what that also does? Did Barry always have this like hero in him to save people? I never got his call to action in this movie. You know how usually solo movies have your like definitive, give me a superhero movie and I'll find it for you.
Iron Man,
easy. Like,
yeah, I know. It's easy.
Give me something where it's in universe for a little bit, where we've been operating for a little bit.
Doctor Strange.
I mean, this isn't about you. Like, this is not about you. And then subsequently, what does he do? Goes to Dormammu, and he essentially, damns himself to be stuck with Dormammu in this time loop forever. And because he understands, like, this isn't about me at this point. Like, you can find me movies, and like all the good ones have the definitive, like, defining. He
just feels like. What he feels like is he's the Flash because it's like his job.
That is the perfect way to put it. And it's in terms of these superhero movies, that's not how you get the sell of your superhero. Like, he's just there to be there, is what it feels like, and it's rather unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, screenwriting 101, like, what did he learn? Like, he still moved the can of tomatoes to make his dad free.
He still changed the timeline.
He still changed the timeline. So
he snapped Ben Affleck out of existence.
And he bought George Clooney in. That was like when, Thanos died in Endgame and then young Thanos came back. He didn't do much. And that's the Flash.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I still think there's some decent bits in this movie. I do like, a couple quick fire ones. I do like Young Barry's first run. I do actually think that scene's pretty solid. I actually had some fun with that. Like I said, that scene in the Batcave between Old Barry and Young Barry, I think that scene's actually pretty good.
The whole movie's not like a total disaster.
Yeah, Keaton Batman. Like, it's just, in terms of movie making, like, Muschietti, I think, gave a great audition to direct a Batman movie where he is going to have time to do it. Yeah. And, like, I think we're going to get, it's a nice contrast. Like, we had, like, we're having a very, cool universe with Pattinson right now, which I think is really cool. Grounded in some realism. And then this is a perfect counter. Like, let's just say it's Jensen Ackles that plays Batman. Like, do the comic thing. Like, you know, this Batman that is equipped, that can interact with these metahumans, like, just do that on that front, too. And I think Muschietti understands the physicality of the Batman. And obviously, he didn't write this movie. I think he's going to have a little bit more to do, like, you know, integrated. I also think James Gunn's I have a feeling James Gunn's going to write that Batman movie. I have a sneaking suspicion that he's either going to be the one or somebody that we know and that James Gunn expressly trusts is going to write that Batman movie.
Yeah.
You know, I think he gave a good audition to direct it. And yeah, I mean, there's some good speedster bits in this movie, like the beginning, you know, like you said, where the time kind of warped. The Chrono Bowl is an interesting idea. We've never seen time represented kind of like that, especially in these superhero movies. In a day and age in the modern day of superhero movies where time travel and multiverses are the thing you need to do, apparently. So yeah, there's the bones of something great in here. But, you know, just in terms of, you know, your emotional bits, your character building bits, this movie does not do enough of that, especially in that middle bit. It's such this emphasis on Keaton, but, you know, where it all comes down to is, where's your character building for Barry Allen? I don't think there's any character building for, you know, 28-year-old Barry Allen that is the center of this movie. There's really no evolution of him as a character.
No.
They just, I mean, it's like, you know, don't do this thing, and then he didn't do the thing.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
And he had no exterior motivation to not realize his mistake. Because it all came from himself.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, what if him running back in time created the Reverse Flash? Like, even that would have been more interesting.
Which is the Dark Flash thing, essentially. Yeah. But the Dark Flash thing plays a lot more like Savitar, like that, like...
And he dies.
Yeah. And then he immediately dies. Zod is, man, it's just a caricature of what he was. Like, you know, it is unfortunate. And, like... You know, the only reason that Michael Shannon said he came back is because, and he said it, like, he has so much respect for Zach and the character that they built, and then he said that Andy Muschietti's he's a lovely guy to talk to and, like, be around too, so, and, like, you can hear, like, they've been putting him on the press junkets and on the press tours, and Sasha Kaye have been the two. Keaton hasn't been on it, I don't think, so, to use him as the person to put on the press junket is everything you need to know about this movie on an outside lens.
Yeah.
Somebody that has, 15 lines of dialogue, maybe?
Yeah.
Doesn't talk a lot, just is there.
Is he there?
And he's not even that threatening in this case because the two Flashes are just dealing with Kryptonians.
Yeah.
Something that, you know... One thing I do like about Man of Steel as well too is like how much of a struggle it is for Clark to try to deal with them. Like he's really struggling to fight them in that opening bit, which I really appreciate.
Yeah,
man, just the choices. These choices, are just really hurts this movie in the long. Like I don't think this movie has a lot of rewatchability either.
No,
it doesn't have a lot of going back and just trying to checking it out. Like. You can maybe go to some of the Keaton bits, but there's not a lot. There's not as much as you think there would be.
Yeah.
And, obviously, I don't care what anybody says. The main selling point of your movie is your main star. And that main star did not get the stuff that they needed to succeed in this type of movie, in this type of role.
Nope.
And that's The Flash. 2023. I'm glad it's over. Yeah.
I'm glad this Odyssey is over.
We look to the future. Blue Beetle looks promising.
But... That's my thing. That's what I'm concerned about. Is these DC movies are not making money. Mm-hmm. None of them. Yep. In recent memory. Yep. So I'm just afraid that Blue Beetle is just gonna suffer because of that. Because the character's not super well known. Yep. And
it's not like it has it's a legacy. It is a legacy character, but it's not like a Wally West to Barry Allen legacy or like a Dick Grayson to Bruce Wayne. It's a Jaime Reyes to Ted Kord. Who, if I went up to a random person and asked you who Bruce Wayne was, they probably could tell me he's Batman. If I went up to a random person and asked you who Ted Kord was, they'd be like, "Get out of my face." So, I don't think that movie has enough writing for it, but the only thing, and I will say, a main star, so your main star that had one of the most popular shows on Netflix, that's going to help you. You adding George Lopez to your cast is going to help you. This being the first Latino-led superhero movie, that's going to help you, which is all great things. Yeah. So, I hope this movie performs how Shazam 1 performed. That would be probably a dream scenario for them, as they just catch some lightning in a bottle. The action looks super tight, but also very, comic comic-y, which I think is awesome. So it's a perfect mix.
Yeah, I think it looks. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
I think it looks really good. I'm just worried about, like, again, like you said up top when we started the episode, like, we're not the general audience. Like, is this going to appeal to a general audience? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think this movie's going to have to rely a ton on word of mouth.
Sure.
And, you know, I don't think it can even rely on, because of the Flash, I don't even think it can rely on pre-release reviews.
No, we can't. I can't trust anything anymore. I really can't trust nothing.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, this movie also has a burden on it now, because he's the first character in the DCU apparently, which I personally think is a mistake. I just think you need to. I don't know what was holding them so much to the. I think the only thing that was holding them, why they wouldn't definitively say Superman is the beginning, is because they needed people to see the Flash movie, and people probably thought that something was going to happen in this movie, which me included. I thought something was going to happen in this movie to make it definitive. It was not.
No.
To the point where the main character didn't really learn a lot.
No, they left it open because they were waiting to see if this was going to make any money. If it made any money, they would inevitably make a sequel that would probably have the Reverse Flash in it, I would hope.
Well, I mean, Andy Muschietti came out and said, like, in his mind, the Reverse Flash did kill Barry's mom.
Well, thanks. It would have been nice for you to put that in the actual movie. Thanks for telling us that.
Even a streak of red lightning running away.
Yeah, something.
Right.
Anything.
Maybe young Barry killed his mom. Because she was messing with him about the map. She was making him make that Sunday sauce every day.
Yeah, it's just super confusing. But yeah, like, you know, we said, like, I feel like they just need to not with Blue Beetle, because we can already write this one off as a financial disaster.
Yeah, this is not good. This is bad. This is very bad.
You just have to hope they just have to hope that Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2 are not equal disasters.
And what's the rumors about the first press screening of Aquaman 2 have been bad, like very bad.
Well, again, it's a movie out of time, a movie that also has a problematic person involved. Yep. So I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing going for Aquaman, at least, is the first one was very, very popular overseas.
Yep.
So that could help it. But again, it's another movie that was kind of in development for a while.
Got delayed multiple times. This movie was supposed to come out. Even when remember when they did like the flash of like last year when this is what's to come for DC. The first one was Aquaman. That was like one of the big sells.
Yeah. So
I am concerned. We haven't seen anything for that movie besides that one image. We haven't seen. I think they did reshoot to get Amber Heard out of that movie.
We'll see.
Who's to say?
We thought they might have done something similar with this, but they were just like,
they actually literally and figuratively doubled down. So,
oh my god! All right, I'm glad it's over.
Yeah,
it's over.
It's
finally
over.
Bruce Campbell appearance. It's over.
I don't even want to run through the categories.
Me either, because there's nothing about this movie that I want to pick out and be like we already honestly like. To be perfectly honest, we already talked about the good bits.
Yeah, sure. Like, best battle, like, there's not really, or, best fight sequence. It's probably either it's nothing Flash related. It's the Batman stuff.
Yeah.
Best heat check performance, Sasha Calle.
Yeah.
And it's kind of unfortunate because she was not as integral as I thought she would be to this. So, which is very unfortunate. Funniest moment?
I like the who the F is this?
Yeah, who the F is this guy?
It felt very natural.
I don't know why him running in that room. And
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's the tape measure bit.
Oh, yeah. That tape measure bit is good. Best source material callback?
I could give you a worse source material callback.
The fact that this is a Flashpoint movie?
I can't even give you a source material callback, to be honest.
I mean, what is it? His lighting being yellow now? I don't know. Best NPC? The nurse?
The nurse or the barista?
Oh, yeah, the barista was kind of funny.
Christopher Reeve?
Jesus.
No.
Favorite musical moment? Like, actual song?
The beginning, when he takes off.
Yeah, I did like when Young Barry was running that song that was playing. That's super famous, that I don't want to get licensed for. Oh, my bad. That was best song. Best musical moment. The score for this movie is actually pretty solid.
It is.
But it would get better served in a movie that has more gravitas to it.
Is it weird that my favorite score moment was the Elfman Batman song?
That's also mine, spoiler alert.
He swooped down?
Yeah. Favorite line?
I quite like the end bit with his mom when he, I love you more, I love you first.
Yeah. My favorite line was the old Barry to young Barry, like, you don't understand what you have felt. Best world building or lore. Should we just do the inverse? Like, what destroyed this universe?
Some might say the reverse.
Yeah. Barry Allen. Dare I say favorite shot? Is there like a definitively good shot in this, like great shot or defining shot in this movie?
It's the only one that really comes to mind is it's in the trailer when they drop out of the plane.
Oh yeah.
And they do the silhouette of the plane and the moon. Mm-hmm. I like that. That was a cool. That was a cool callback.
Maybe the when the lightning strikes both of them in the crime lab was pretty cool. Best performance, is it Nora Allen?
I was actually honestly gonna say Sasha Kaye.
She was good in such a limited capacity. She's good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about the Superman Woman of Tomorrow comic, like what it's about, but basically she just goes on like a I'm useless kind of way, which is a really compelling. Like, you're a superhero and you were told you have to be a superhero, but now the person you were supposed to be the superhero for doesn't need it, and is also the most famous person on the planet, so she just kind of goes into a drunken binge throughout the galaxy. I buy that as Sasha Kaye.
Me too.
Tenfold. Like, just getting drunk at random places and then getting a call to action to defend this race of people. Like, I get that.
Yeah.
That I buy. Favorite character?
Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne. Which Bruce Wayne? Who's
All
to
of
say?
them.
Who's to say?
The amalgamation of Bruce Waynes.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree that it's probably Ben Affleck is my favorite character, which is saying something. And then favorite moment or scene, I think it's the grocery store scene.
Yeah,
It's incredible. And yeah, that is The Flash. That has been 100 episodes of the Project Infinite podcast. Here's to another 100. It is insane.
We're coming up on 2 years in August.
Yeah.
End of July, beginning of August.
Should we give out some awards for ourselves? Favorite episode?
Man, I like the Matrix episode a lot.
Yeah, I might have said that one.
I like the Stranger Things episode a lot.
That was a good one.
The Top Gun episode was a blast.
Mm-hmm. Both figuratively and literally a blast.
And literally. Obviously, like the more goofy ones, like the Morbius episode. There's a bunch.
Yeah. I think some of my favorite ones, the Batman one, we were on a binge. Can we spoil what we did? We saw the Batman and then we recorded our preview episode after we saw the Batman and we had to lie about it. Who's doing it like us, man? Who's doing it like us? I quite enjoyed our review of Stargirl. I think that was a pretty fun episode where we got to talk about, these smaller characters kind of getting the shine. Our 80s retrospective was also pretty fun. I did enjoy that quite a bit. For whatever reason, I think the best review, like where I think we did our best work, funny enough, was on the Eternals. I don't know why. I think we were just firing on all cylinders, like as pretentious film people reviewing a comic book movie. But I think that was probably one of our best. So those are just some highlights that I've had throughout this time. That Stranger Things episode was awesome. Our obsession with The Last of Us really owned a couple of these episodes recently. So yeah, we've had some great times. What's the best bit that we've had? I know what it is. There's a right answer for this.
This is the Fast and Furious?
Yeah, it's the relentless nature that we had for only talking about Fast and Furious. for the first 25 episodes, we couldn't stop.
And then it bore fruit when Fast X came out.
Yeah, it did, yeah. And then that was sublet by Oppenheimer, the first talks of Oppenheimer. We've been doing this so long, we were around when Oppenheimer was incepted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
figuratively and that's my new bit, is what's figurative and literal.
Weekly Oppenheimer casting.
Weekly Oppenheimer casting. What else fun stuff? The slappening was a big one. that was a huge deal. Man, I just like talking about, anytime we get to talk about the state of movies, for better or for worse about the state of movies. I always do enjoy talking about, real world stuff that goes into all of these things. And look, all the stuff we say about everything in here, all these things, shout out to all the people that are making all these things for us to review. Even, Andy Mouchet, people that, giving us something to do, giving us jobs doing this. This is
we couldn't
great.
do this every week if there weren't things to talk about.
Right. Thank you to Tom Cruise. Shout out, I guess.
Also, boo Tom Cruise for saying that The Flash was good.
Yeah, but also thanks Tom Cruise because Mission Impossible is getting great reviews.
Maybe he saw Mission Impossible instead of The Flash and just thought it was The Flash.
Yeah.
He was like, this is great.
This is amazing. And then he was on the phone. And you're talking about The Flash, right? And he's like, what? And then they just hung up. He's like, he's definitely talking about The Flash. Whiteboard update. Actors: Andrew Garfield, Charlie Cox, Tom Cruise, Stephen Amell, Brandon Fraser, not Jonathan Major, Bella Ramsey, Wood Harris, and Diamond Hansu. That's the list. We can add people, we can take people away, but that's just the list. Don't ask me why there's not this person. It doesn't matter. That's just the list. The movies on this list: Fast and Furious, Dune 2021, Oppenheimer and Barbie, and Top Gun Maverick are the movies on this list.
Yep.
The shows on this list are specifically Sandman and Peacemaker. The characters on this list, and this is probably my favorite part: Wong, Morpheus from Sandman, Vigilante, Soldier Boy, Surveyman Valarian, Goat, Quaritch, and Avatar Quaritch is what I have written here. So there's two. That's not the same character. And famous character actors is our last category. This is super important. Pattinson, Jeffrey Wright, Reese Fonz, Stephen Lang, Alfred Molina, and Sam Worthington are the best character actors we have.
What a list.
Yeah. We actually need to get all these people, not Jonathan Majors, on this podcast to talk. That's exactly what we should do.
Oh, that's good. All right, guys. Speaking, and then for 100 episodes, you can find us on Twitter at Project INF _pod.
There's probably more than 100 episodes is what I just thought about.
There is more than 100, but this is our 100 because we did those rapid reviews.
We got to bring those back.
And we did one on The Boys also.
Well, how could we not? Homelander could have been watching us. We had to get that out.
Project INF _pod. You can follow us on Facebook. New episodes posted every Wednesday on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram
at the Project Infinite Pod.
Next week, we're going to talk a little Secret Invasion, talk a little Nick Fury. We're going to talk about the first episode.
So we're not going to talk about Zoe 101 for the 101st episode.
Not this
Copy.
time. Not this time.
Next time, baby.
Next time, baby. We're going to talk about Secret Invasion, Nick Fury, Sam Jackson in the MCU. He's been there since the beginning.
He has been there since the beginning.
He outlasted RDJ.
He did outlast RDJ. I'm not dead yet.
So we're going to do that. We got Indiana Jones coming up. Yep. We got
Mission Impossible. And
then we got
the
D-Day.
D-Day, the true D-Day.
Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Is Barbie going to have a better existential crisis than Oppenheimer does?
These are these questions that I can't wait to answer.
Because, look, I already know, you made the nuclear bomb. That sucks. You're now Death Shore of Worlds. But is Barbie a real girl?
Or is she just a Barbie girl in a Barbie world?
Exactly. And these are these questions.
That episode is going to be phenomenal.
That's the one that's going to make us our million. That's the one.
Just the compare and contrast.
I can't wait.
Insanity.
I'm actually going to get Ryan Gosling on for. I wish there was an actor that was in both movies. That would have really just sold that day.
Oh man.
Oh, the Oscars are in trouble.
Oh boy. Between this, Oppenheimer, Barbie,
God.
The Flash.
The Flash, who's definitely going to be nominated for Best Picture.
Fast X.
Yep. Another Best Picture nominee.
Oh, it's coming out April 2025. Fast X Part 2 is coming out.
And you thought we didn't... What a way to end the 100th episode with some Fast and Furious news. End it. We've done it.
All right, guys. You said Instagram already, right?
Yep.
Cool. All right. From me...
Oh, I didn't even say... we gotta go, man.
We gotta go, man.
That's one of our good bits.
From me, from the...
You have 100 things to pull from.
Oh, Christ. I was gonna pick one from the Flash movie, but there's nobody in this movie.
Yeah.
From the Ben Affleck Batman of the podcast.
I've done it. Is that a good thing? Am I going to have to get addicted to... this is not good. Like, in universe or outside?
Yeah.
Because,
in universe, yeah.
I feel so bad for Ben Affleck.
In universe, Ben Affleck Batman.
Good.
Not
stuff.
George Clooney Batman, not Michael Keaton Batman.
Yeah.
Specifically Ben Affleck Batman. The drunk Jason Momoa of the podcast.
Which drunk Jason Momoa? There's multiple.
Oh, no.
Is it Dune drunk Jason Momoa? Is it Game of Thrones drunk Jason Momoa? Is it Fast X drunk Jason Momoa?
Fast X drunk Jason Momoa was just on another level.
You want to blow up the Vatican? Well, okay.
You guys are going to hell. All right, guys. We'll see you next.
Remember the scene in Endgame when like Thanos was fighting Cap, Thor, and Iron Man?
Yeah.
I need that same scene, but I need it to be The Rock and Vin Diesel. Like, I just want Jason Momoa to be sitting there.
It's gonna happen.
Oh man,
it's absolutely gonna happen. I can't wait.
The Rock's gonna be like, let's kill him properly this time.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week for some Secret Invasion stuff. Until then, goodbye.
Peace.